should have driven that night. Then maybe this wouldn't have happened. But it was raining heavily outside, and the car's gas tank was empty, even though there were miles and miles of dark roads and forests all around. Because when I handed over the keys, the old hotel owner gave me a warning. "Sleep wherever you want, Dad, but I'm ordering you never to enter room 13, Dad." My name is Daniel Carter, and at the time this happened, I was 32 years old. I worked as a delivery driver for a small medical supply company out of Ohio. It was not an exciting job, but it paid the bills. Most weeks, I drove through quiet towns, small hospitals, and empty back roads that looked like they had been forgotten by the rest of the country. This happened in late October, almost 6 years ago. I was driving through a lonely part of western Pennsylvania, close to the edge of the mountains. I had been on the road since early morning, and by the time the sun went down, I was tired, hungry, and ready to be anywhere except behind the wheel. The weather had turned bad fast. Rain hit the windshield so hard that the wipers could barely keep up. The road was narrow and black, with no streetlights, no houses, and no gas stations for miles. Every few minutes, lightning flashed behind the trees and showed me the wet road ahead. Then everything went dark again. My phone had no signal. The radio only played static. And the gas needle was sitting dangerously close to empty. I remember leaning forward over the steering wheel, trying to see through the rain, when I saw a sign on the right side of the road. It was old and faded. A few of the bulbs were out, but I could still read the words. Pine Rest Motel. Vacancy. The sign stood beside a cracked driveway that disappeared between 2 rows of dark pine trees. I slowed down. For a moment, I thought about passing it. The place looked old. Not just old in the normal roadside motel way. It looked like it had been sitting there for too long, waiting for someone unlucky enough to stop. But then the engine gave a rough cough. The gas light blinked on. So I turned into the driveway. The motel appeared slowly through the rain. It was a long, 1-story building with peeling white paint and green doors. A few rooms had numbers nailed beside them, but many of the numbers were crooked or missing. The parking lot was almost empty. There was one old pickup truck near the office, and a rusted soda machine glowing faintly under the roof. The whole place had a heavy silence around it. Not peaceful silence. A listening silence. I parked in front of the office and sat there for a few seconds with the engine running. Rain ran down the windshield in thick lines. The motel sign buzzed behind me, flickering red in the side mirror. Then I grabbed my jacket and ran inside. A little bell above the office door rang when I entered. The office smelled like dust, old coffee, and damp carpet. A yellow lamp sat on the counter, giving the room a weak glow. Behind the counter, an old man sat in a chair, reading a newspaper that looked older than the news itself. He did not look surprised to see me. He simply lowered the paper and stared. He was thin, with pale skin and deep lines around his mouth. His hair was white and combed neatly back. He wore a dark sweater, and his hands rested on the counter like 2 dry branches. "Road bad tonight," he said. His voice was soft, but there was something heavy behind it. "Yeah," I said, wiping rain from my face. "I just need a room for the night, and maybe a phone if you have one. I've got no signal." He nodded slowly. "No signal out here," he said. "Never was." I tried to smile. "Any rooms available?" He looked down at a wooden rack of keys hanging behind him. There were 12 keys. Each one had a small brass tag. Room 1, Room 2, Room 3. All the way to Room 12. The old man reached for Room 7. "You'll take this one," he said. I paid in cash. He wrote my name in a large guest book on the counter. The pages were yellow, and the cover looked like cracked leather. As he turned the book around for me to sign, I noticed something strange. There were no other names on the page. Not for that day. Not for that week. Not even for that month. I signed anyway. Then he slid the key across the counter. Before I could pick it up, his cold fingers closed over it. He looked at me again. His eyes were pale gray. "Listen carefully," he said. I stopped smiling. "There's one rule here." I waited. He leaned closer. "There is no room 13, he whispered. "So if you see it, don't open it, don't knock, don't answer anything coming from inside, and if someone calls your room asking about it, hang up." I almost laughed. I thought it was some kind of joke. Maybe something the old man told travelers to make the place seem more interesting. But he did not laugh. His face stayed serious. "Sir," I said, "I just need to sleep." He nodded. "That's what they all say." Then he let go of the key. I stood there for another second, waiting for him to explain. He didn't. So I took the key and walked back out into the rain. Room 7 was near the middle of the motel. The door stuck when I pushed it open, and the inside smelled like old wood and cold air. The room was simple. A bed with a brown blanket. A small table. A lamp with a yellow shade. A television that looked like it had not worked in 20 years. A phone on the nightstand. A bathroom with green tiles and a cracked mirror. It was not comfortable, but it was dry. I locked the door behind me, dropped my bag on the floor, and turned on the lamp. Outside, the rain kept falling. The sound filled the room. I checked my phone again. No service. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to tell myself the old man was just strange. Maybe he lived alone out here too long. Maybe he liked scaring guests. Maybe there was no story at all. But the room felt wrong. I cannot explain it better than that. It felt like someone had just left before I came in. The air was too still. The bed was too neat. The mirror looked too dark. I went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and looked at myself in the cracked mirror. That was when I heard the first sound. A soft knock. Not from the door. From the wall behind the bed. I turned around. The room was silent. I waited. Then it came again. Knock. 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 Slow, careful, polite. I stepped out of the bathroom and stared at the wall. The motel was built with thin walls, so I thought maybe another guest was in the next room, room 8. But when I looked through the curtain, the parking lot was empty except for my van and the old pickup by the office. No cars. No lights in any other room. I stood there listening. Nothing. I told myself it was pipes. Old buildings make noise. Wind moves through walls. Rain hits gutters. Wood settles at night. That is what I told myself. Then the phone rang. The sound made me jump so badly, I almost slipped. The black phone on the nightstand shook with each ring. I stared at it. The old man's warning came back to me. If someone calls your room asking about it, hang up. The phone rang again. And again. I should have ignored it. But I picked it up. Hello. For a few seconds, there was only static. Then I heard a voice. It was a woman. She sounded far away. Very far away. Did he give you the key? My throat went dry. What? The static grew louder. The woman whispered again. Did the owner give you the key to room 13? I slammed the phone down. I stood in the middle of the room with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my neck. For a while, I did nothing. I just listened to the rain. Then I grabbed the room key, opened my door, and walked quickly back to the office. The rain had slowed to a mist, but the air was freezing. The office light was still on. The bell rang when I stepped inside. The old man was exactly where I had left him. Same chair. Same newspaper. Same tired eyes. I got a phone call, I said. He did not move. A woman asked me about room 13. The old man slowly folded the newspaper. His hands shook a little. What did you say? He asked. Nothing, I hung up. He closed his eyes. Good. What is going on here? He looked past me, toward the dark windows. Room 13 is not for guests. I thought you said it doesn't exist. It doesn't, he said, not all the time. That answer made me angry. I was tired. I was cold. I was stuck in a creepy motel with a man who spoke like he was in some old ghost story. Look, I said, I don't know what kind of game this is, but I'm leaving in the morning. I just want to sleep tonight. The old man stood up slowly. He was taller than I expected. You can sleep, he said. Keep your door locked, keep the curtains closed. Don't answer the phone again. And if you hear someone walking past your room, don't look. I stared at him. Why? His face changed then. For the first time, he looked afraid. Because if you look, he said, they'll know you're awake. I did not know what to say to that. He reached under the counter and pulled out a small flashlight. Power goes out sometimes, he said. Take this. I took it. His fingers touched mine. They were ice cold. As I turned to leave, I noticed something on the wall behind him. An old framed photograph. It showed the motel many years ago, back when it looked new. There were cars in the lot, families standing by the doors, and a younger version of the old man standing beside the office. But there was something else. At the far end of the motel, behind the line of rooms, there was another door. A green door. The number beside it was hard to see, but I knew what it was before my mind wanted to accept it. I looked back at the old man. He had noticed me staring. Go to your room, he said quietly. I did, but I did not sleep. I locked my door. I closed the curtains. I sat on the bed with the flashlight beside me and the lamp on. For almost an hour, nothing happened. The rain became lighter. The wind moved softly around the building. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled over the hills. Then the phone rang again. I did not touch it. It rang 7 times. Then stopped. A minute later, the knocking started again. This time, it did not come from the wall behind the bed. It came from my door. 3 soft knocks. Knock. 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 I held my breath. A voice spoke from the other side. It was the old man. Daniel, he said, open the door. I almost stood up. Then I froze. I had never told the old man my first name. I had signed the guest book as D. Carter. The voice came again. Daniel, open the door, you're in the wrong room. I backed away from the door. The knob turned slowly, but the lock held. The voice changed. It became softer. A woman's voice. Please, she whispered. He told us not to enter either. I covered my mouth with my hand. The floorboards outside creaked. Someone was standing there. Then someone else. Then another. I heard footsteps gathering outside my room, slow and wet, like people walking in from the rain. I wanted to look through the peephole. Every part of me wanted to know what was out there. But the old man's words held me in place. If you hear someone walking past your room, don't look. The footsteps moved away, one by one. When the silence came back, it felt worse than the sound. I stayed awake until a little after midnight. Then the lamp flickered. Once, twice, then it went out. The whole room fell into darkness. I grabbed the flashlight and turned it on. The beam cut across the bed, the wall, the old television, the bathroom door. Everything was still. Then the flashlight landed on something that had not been there before. A key. It was lying on the table beside my bag. A small brass key with a tag. Room 13. I stared at it for a long time. I know how this sounds. You probably think I should have thrown it away, or stayed locked in my room, or run to my van and waited until morning. That is what I wish I had done. But fear does something strange to the mind. The longer I looked at that key, the more I felt like I had to know. The motel owner had lied. The room existed. The voice on the phone knew about it. The people outside knew about it. And somehow the key had ended up in my room. I told myself I would only find the door. I would not open it. Just find it. Just prove to myself that I was not losing my mind. So I put on my jacket, took the flashlight, and stepped outside.
Silver.
The rain had stopped. The motel parking lot shone under the cloudy night sky. The air smelled like wet pine trees and old metal. The office light was off now. The old pickup truck was gone. I walked slowly along the row of rooms. Room 7. Room 8. Room 9. Room 10. Room 11. Room 12. Then the building ended. Behind room 12, there was only a narrow path leading around the back of the motel. I stood there, breathing hard. There was no room 13. I almost laughed from relief. Then I heard music. Soft music. Old music. Like something playing from a radio in another room. It came from behind the motel. I turned the flashlight toward the path. The beam showed wet grass, broken concrete, and pine branches moving in the wind. I should have gone back. Instead, I followed the music. Behind the motel, the ground sloped down toward the trees. There were old laundry lines, a rusted barrel, and a small shed with its door hanging open. Beyond the shed, half hidden by vines, was another part of the building. An old wing. It looked like it had been closed for years. The windows were boarded. The paint was almost gone. The roof sagged in the middle. The whole structure leaned slightly, like it was tired. At the end of that wing was a green door. The number beside it was still there. The music was coming from inside. My hand tightened around the key. I stood there for a long time, unable to move. Then I heard the woman's voice again. Not through a phone. Not from behind me. From inside the room. "Please," she whispered. "It's cold out here." I stepped closer. The door was old, but the brass knob looked polished, as if someone had touched it recently. I lifted the key. My hand shook. I told myself I would unlock it, open it just a crack, and then leave. Just a crack. The key slid into the lock perfectly. Before I turned it, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around and almost screamed. The old motel owner stood behind me in the dark. He was not wearing a coat. Rainwater dripped from his white hair, though the rain had already stopped. His face was pale with fear. "What did I tell you?" he whispered. I could barely speak. "How did you get here?" He looked at the key in my hand. "She gave it to you." I pulled away from the door. "Who?" He looked at room 13. "My wife." The music inside the room stopped. The old man closed his eyes. For a few seconds, his face looked so broken that I felt sorry for him. Then he said, "Come with me." He led me back to the office. Inside, he turned on the lamp and locked the door behind us. The room seemed smaller now. He sat down behind the counter, but he did not pick up his newspaper. Instead, he opened the old guest book. Page after page was filled with names. Some were from decades ago. Some pages had faded so badly, I could barely read them. He turned to a page near the middle and pointed to a name.
Silver.
Evlyn Walker,
Come on, boy.
room 13, October 29, 1978. "My wife," he said. I looked at the page. Beside her name were 3 other names. A man. A woman. A child. All assigned to room 13. "What happened?" I asked. The old man stared down at the book. "Nothing that made the papers," he said. "Nothing people would believe. Room 13 was a normal room once. Last room in the old wing. My wife cleaned rooms here when we were young. One night, she went in and did not come out." I felt a cold pressure in my chest. "What do you mean she didn't come out?" "I mean I opened that door 10 minutes after she entered," he said. "And the room was empty. Window locked, bathroom empty, no other door. Her cleaning cart was still there. Her coat was still on the chair, but she was gone. The wind pressed against the office windows. The old man kept talking. After that, guests started hearing her. Calls at night, knocking in the walls, music from the old room. Some people saw the door, some didn't. The ones who opened it. He stopped. What happened to them? He looked at me. They became part of the motel. I swallowed. That's not possible. No, he said, it is. Then the office phone rang. Both of us froze. The old man stared at the phone like it was a snake on the counter. It rang again. He did not move. On the third ring, the phone answered itself. The receiver lifted slightly, as if an invisible hand had picked it up. Static filled the office. Then the woman's voice came through. "Samuel," she whispered. The old man's eyes filled with tears. "Don't," he said. "Samuel," she said again. "I'm still waiting." His name was Samuel. The voice on the phone was not angry. That made it worse. It was gentle, lonely, almost loving. The old man stood up slowly. "I have kept people away for years," he whispered. "Every storm, every lost traveler, every person who stopped here by mistake. I warned them. I tried." The phone hissed. Then the woman said, "You promised you would come back for me." The old man's face collapsed. He looked at me. "You need to leave," he said. "What about you?" He smiled sadly. "I should have left a long time ago." Before I could stop him, he took the room 13 key from my hand. Then he walked out into the night. I followed him. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid to be alone. Maybe I still thought I could help him. We went back behind the motel, down the wet path, toward the old wing. The green door was waiting. This time, light came from under it. Warm yellow light. And from inside, I could hear voices. Many voices. People talking softly. A child laughing. Glasses clinking. Music playing. It sounded like a room full of people from another time. The old man stood in front of the door. His hand touched the number 13. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he unlocked it. The door opened. I cannot fully explain what I saw inside. It was not a ruined motel room. It was a clean room, bright and warm, with yellow wallpaper, a made bed, and a radio playing old music on the dresser. And there were people inside. A woman in a blue dress stood by the window. A young couple sat on the bed. A little boy played on the carpet with a small red toy car. They all turned and looked at us. Their faces were pale but peaceful, like people who had been waiting for a very long time. The woman in the blue dress smiled at the old man. "Samuel," she said. He stepped into the room. I grabbed his arm. "Don't." He looked back at me. His eyes were calm now. "Close the door," he said, "and don't open it again." Then he walked inside. The woman took his hand. For 1 second, the room grew brighter. The music rose. The people inside began to smile. Then the door slammed shut. The sound shook the whole building. I stood there in the dark, breathing fast, staring at the green door. The number 13 was gone. Just gone. No nail holes. No faded marks. Nothing. I ran. I ran back to room 7, grabbed my bag, and got into my van. The gas tank was almost empty, but I started the engine anyway and drove away from Pine Rest Motel as fast as I could. I do not remember most of the drive. I remember the headlights shaking over the road. I remember the trees bending in the wind. I remember checking the rearview mirror again and again, expecting to see the old motel sign behind me. But it was gone. By sunrise, I reached a gas station nearly 20 miles away. There was an older woman behind the counter. I asked her if she knew a place called Pine Rest Motel. Her face changed. She said the motel had closed in the early 80s. I told her I had stayed there the night before. She stared at me for so long that I felt embarrassed. Then she reached under the counter and pulled out an old local history book. She opened it to a page with a black and white photograph. There it was. Pine Rest Motel. The same office. The same row of green doors. The same sign. Under the photo, the caption said, Pine Rest Motel, abandoned after owner Samuel Walker disappeared in October 1978. My hands went cold. I looked closer at the photo. Samuel Walker stood beside the office. Young, smiling, alive. And next to him stood his wife in a blue dress. Behind them, at the far end of the motel, was room 13. I left the gas station without saying much. For years, I told nobody the full story. I tried to forget it. I moved to another state. I changed jobs. I avoided small motels. I never drove that stretch of road again. But 3 weeks ago, something happened. I came home from work and found an envelope in my mailbox. No stamp. No return address. Inside was a small brass key. The tag was old and scratched. Room 7. There was also a folded note. The handwriting was thin and shaky. It said, "You left before checkout." That night at exactly 3:13 in the morning, my bedroom phone rang. I do not own a bedroom phone, but I heard it anyway, ringing from inside the wall. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a woman's voice whispered my name. And from the other side of my bedroom wall, someone knocked.